And we're rolling.
We're back like Batman. Here we are. Whatever that means. Hey, speaking of which, when I rolled in, I was like, I don't have anything to talk about. I just said that and it triggered something. Do you know that they're going to make the new Robin bisexual?
Yes, I saw that.
Did anybody see that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. The new Robin's going to be bisexual. I don't know if that's in the comics. I think it's in the comics for right now.
I was going to say, because
well, for years we used to laugh about that.
Yeah,
remember?
yeah. He was a little fruity.
Yeah.
In the show I think it's like on HBO Max, that DC Universe or something. There's a show that has like a Robin in it.
Yeah.
And that dude's like
pretty fruity.
No.
Or is he pretty masculine?
He's the opposite of what you just said. So
okay.
I wonder if he got the memo.
Maybe not.
No, I don't think so.
Well, speaking of that, it was funny. I was flipping through my Facebook and I'm rolling through and I come upon this ad. They post these ads in your Facebook feed, and it's like some of them I get. I'm like, how the hell am I getting this? So it's this advertisement for like Elle magazine, ELLE or
Elle. Yeah, it's been around a long time.
I know exactly. Where
so it's a dude. It's a dude with mascara on, but he's got a beard and he's like flipping his hair. He's got this long, chick hair,
right.
And he's got this long flowing chick hair, and he's flipping it and he's batting his mascaraed up eyes. I mean, literally, he's got eyeshadow on, and I'm like,
the first thing I thought about when I saw you post that was I was like, I'm sorry, Jason Momoa, but this looks like Jason Momoa.
It does. It does without the muscles. It was pretty fruity.
It was, it was like over the top. It was like way over the top.
But at that point, you start questioning, what did I search to trigger this? That's what I start thinking about, what type of homosexual latencies do I have in my searches?
You had another post on one of your more recently popular posting places was something about, I know what it was. And it had something to do with like Rambo's advice about handling freaking Afghanistan.
I thought that was pretty funny.
And underneath that was this U.S. general all done up in like mascara and stuff. It was
it was Miley. That was
that meme, that was a pretty funny meme.
The fingernails.
So the top portion of the meme was Arlie Ermy as Hartman.
Yeah.
And it says, "Show me your war face."
That's it.
And then it's got what's his name with all the mascara on.
Okay.
Miley.
Lipstick.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I didn't even know who the general was. That's how far removed from the current.
The only reason I knew it's because we've been kind of keeping up with the current events. It's been
kind of hard,
difficult not to, because it just dominates any type of news coverage or.
Well, yeah. I mean, before we even got on the air, when we were addressing your deal about what to talk about, a lot of us saw scenes or places where we had actually been.
Yeah. That's got to be tough to see that
in the airport and just seeing how unruly it looks. I mean, it's fucking crazy right now.
So they came out this morning. I heard it's funny you mentioned that. So the president's been telling us that people are not getting beaten at the airport. It's orderly. So they came out this morning, and they have apparently footage now of people being beaten at the airport
by Taliban.
In mass.
Yeah.
So I think they're just roaming through the crowds, just swinging on folks, from what I can tell.
Yeah, because like the biggest deal that I've been reading is they're trying to remove U.S. citizens from there, and when comments from the administration or hell even the president that's saying that hey, nobody's struggling to get out of there.
Yeah.
And then when you have, like, for me, my example was I'm watching an actual NBC report from somebody who's sitting at a news desk talking to somebody who's in the field
struggling to get out.
And they're having this conversation.
Yeah.
That says, hey, the president just said this. You're there. What are you seeing? And the first thing that field reporter is going is, I don't know what his sources are.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting here watching it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I heard actual people on the mic. Now, they were phoned in. It was I think it was Fox, or I can't remember what I was watching. It was one of the news programs. And they had phoned into an American that they had gotten hold of on a cell phone. And she says, I fear every time a car drives by, and she was in tears, that it's the Taliban and they're going to get out and beat us.
Yeah.
I mean, this is live coming from, and she's like, they're driving into other people's other people's houses, and they're getting out and they're dragging them out. We don't know where they're taking them.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring up other news agencies other than Fox.
Yeah.
Is because Fox will get motherfucked for using it as your primary source.
They will.
That's why I look at everything.
Did you see that school teacher? Did you see that school teacher in Utah that got fired?
No.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
Lee, what's her name? Lee Kinnan.
This is the one who
science
went on a
teacher
rant.
that went on a rant, and one of the students recorded it.
Yeah. I didn't know it was Utah.
Yeah, it was Utah, and
oh yeah, that was.
Yeah, she went on this epic rant about, I'm smarter than you.
Yeah.
Your parents are stupid. You're smarter than your parents. Trump's an idiot.
Yeah.
And if all you anti-vaxxers are morons, because if you took the shot, that would go away in 5 minutes.
Yep.
And then she said, I'm an LGBT coordinator, and if you say anything, I'll kick your butt, I'll make your life miserable, and I'll do all this stuff.
Right.
And so she was engaging her students in this manner. And
talk about indoctrination.
Well, she was recorded and fired.
So part of me wondered, there's no way that you can be going on this rant and not think that something's going to happen, because it's almost like throwing your head on the chopping block.
Yeah. I think they feel that. I think they get the Jesus juice in them.
Yeah, I think.
And
right.
they get very.
Not that one.
Yeah, not that one. They get very like caught up in the spirit.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And they literally feel empowered because they just watched a rally on YouTube.
Yeah.
I honestly think that.
And so let's take this from
she may sue.
Probably. I think she's already told you that she's going to sue.
If you think about it, I mean,
by what she said to the kids, she's telling you that she's going to sue.
But the system has sort of allowed for it. That's why it's like this
absolutely
crazy, mixed up world where you're going to say stuff, but you're also going to set the rules up that allow you to smack back at somebody.
So let me ask you, because like even with us,
mm-hmm.
there's just some things that not any one of us may agree that we should talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you have three guys in a room that look at subject matter, and some of it
and smoke.
Yes, some of it's conspiratorial, some of it's taboo, some of it's right in the wheelhouse, some of it's just like watching paint dry.
Yeah.
Just think about when you have exponential.
Yeah, when you have a classroom basically.
Armful of this stuff.
Sure.
And you know, and it's what I think is really sad about the state of the affairs today is everybody's trying to pick their way through a minefield to not be hated.
So here's an interesting fact. So let's take what this teacher did.
Why try so hard?
I know, exactly, right.
Let's fucking embrace the hate.
Let's take what this teacher did, okay? And let's reverse it. Let's say it's a white male standing up there and he says, I voted for Trump, and Trump's the greatest thing ever, and if you stand up against me, I'm going to call in my white brother, and we're going to stand against it. So if you heard that,
make your life miserable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is that somebody really say that?
That teacher said that.
No, I'm saying the reverse of what the teacher said.
Yeah, okay.
So let's take that. Me as a person, I wouldn't stand for that, and I would probably fit within the camp of what he was talking about. It's funny how you've got one side of the spectrum that will deny themselves, and then you have another side that just says, I want to give that a pass.
Sure.
That seems to be the problem, and that is really the crux of the problem, is we've lost sight of that. As we used to say, look, everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
Right.
And that's really what's happened here, is everybody's lost sight of the fact you're entitled
to
believe
what you believe. Well, they want to squash your desire to express your opinion.
Right.
By I mean, look at how she overtly threatened everybody.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. If that overt threat came from...
She goes, you can leave now. If you don't do this, leave now. Get out of my class.
Yeah.
Leave now. I'm smarter than everybody. Leave now. And I'm like, you know what? So in school, I would have been the one that debated.
I would have left.
Well, so everybody thought I would have been a lawyer in school because I would debate like to no end.
Well, I would have left because I've been like, fuck yeah, I'm
and then
at class.
at the end, I would have left because I can tell you that for me, I'm there to learn math, not your thoughts on politics.
Yeah, what did she teach? Did we ever figure
science?
Out?
She's a chemistry teacher.
Yeah, chemistry, science, chemistry teacher.
So the first thing I would say is, what does that have to do with chemistry?
And that's what one of the students said at the very beginning of the video. She had a guy that was engaging her. You can tell.
I heard him talk. You couldn't really hear him well on the mic.
He was goading her.
Yeah.
And then she said, I don't care if you record this. And you don't care what you do. So, okay.
That's why I brought up the deal about if you're throwing your head on the chopping block, do you know something that somebody else doesn't? Because if
you have to expect the ramification.
So, hold on just a second here. Hang on. Pardon the interruption. Okay, here we go.
We had a turd in a punch bowl moment there. That's all right.
Me being the turd.
No, it's all good.
Where were we? I lost my train of thought.
Well, we were talking about
that teacher. We were talking about the teacher. So. But anyway, like I said, I just find it interesting that you have one side of it, and it's one side that wants to control the narrative, and it gets a little annoying.
Well, I think that the path that Sam started on before we did stop was a valid discussion to have regarding how people perceive news and how they everybody feels compelled to land on the right side of a story, or get their point across, or even exercise.
Or claim their side of the story is right.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that I blame on. So going back to the crux of this story, I blame a lot of what took place there on like the NEA. You have these teachers unions that have an incredible amount of power. Yeah. And they back this crap. They're clearly political. I think if you look at the NEA, they're clearly political. Look at their dealings with COVID. Look at how they dealt with the president, for that matter, the last presidential election. I think they show you. So you have a group of people that are wholly in control of this organization, and then you have people within that organization that take that as marching orders. And I think that's where this teacher's coming from. I think that's where she gets the gusto to say what she said.
Somebody made a good point the other day that maybe we can discuss, and they were talking about primary, secondary, and tertiary and bypassing of the Constitution.
Yeah.
So typically you have a president that would do it by executive order.
Right.
Secondary would be legislation, court, or whatever. And the third would be the corporate effect.
Yeah.
So what they use is the corporate effect. So for them, it would be unions, corporations, and so they do this through HR departments. And so you start seeing them set down mandates like, okay, you have to have a shot or you're not going to work for us.
Yeah.
Or you have to follow this speak or you're not a part of our union.
Right.
And so I think that going back to your NEA statement, that kind of sums that up, because you've got this, the government is not going to look like the bad guy.
Well, it allows them to bypass. It allows them to bypass it. If you can say a private entity is telling you have to do this, then that's the rules of that private entity. Nobody has governing. They'll tell you that nobody has governing sanction over the top of this private entity, but they exercise that all the time. They'll tell you that on the surface, but if you look at it, there's laws out there on the books of you can't racially discriminate. And I'm not saying these are bad things, but I'm just saying the government says you can't racially discriminate. You can't discriminate based on religion. Mm-hmm. So where does this line get drawn? You know what I'm saying? So I think it's whatever's political expedient for the party that's in power at the time.
And I think it's easier too. They know how they're going to come at you.
Right.
Okay. And they know they're not going to do it. So through the entire Corona thing, they were testing all kinds of ways to legally enforce you to do things.
Right.
And a lot of them get struck down at state level. Okay.
Well, we saw that with like mask mandates.
Exactly. But circumvention of that brings it back to the owner of a business.
Yeah.
So, well, nobody can tell you what you can and cannot do within your organization, which is not true, because you can't discriminate based on age, race, creed, color, anything. But then they can turn around and say, okay, well, as a condition of employment, we require these things. And then now what it's leading up to is there's going to be a deficit in employment.
Yeah.
Because so it looks like it's a 51-49 split.
Yeah.
Kind of in a way. That where 51 of them is like saying, okay, we're okay with this.
Yeah.
We're going to do this. But the other 49 is like, take a flying leap. Because
it's interesting, because I think it's a lot of the younger people, and I don't blame them. It's like I told you, if I was young, I wouldn't want to take the vaccine one way or the. I wouldn't want that in my system. If I'm going to have kids, I know I'm more than likely going to survive if I'm under 35.
So do you see the younger population, let's say from late teens to maybe like late 20s, do you see them as being more compliant now than they were, let's say, like 10, 15 years ago? I don't know if I can necessarily...
It's hard to define that, isn't it?
It is. But I think with this generation, there's a lot of them that aren't taking the vaccine. I think you're seeing the healthcare workers, I think, kind of prove that. You got like 25 to 30% of healthcare workers that have opted not to take this.
And for good reason in their mind.
Yeah. So I want to change my parameter. I want to go to, what were young teens to like early 20s. pre-social media.
Yeah.
Versus now.
I think they were more rebellious.
And that's fair. But so like when you look at, so sustainability has been a big thing right now. So full disclosure on labels, they want food that has no chemicals. Exactly. And you agree, I do too. So what ends up happening is that brings on a whole new suspicion about anything injected or ingested into your body.
Sure.
So the sustainability part of it is like, wait a minute, is that a chemical? Is that a drug?
Yeah.
Why do I want that in my body? So the whole autism, the immunizations creating autism set off this huge forest fire of people like Jenny McCarthy and other popular people come out saying, look, this vaccine, I believe, made my child sick.
Yeah.
Okay? So some of the research that I've been involved in is they've been doing like gut biome testing on children with autism. And they're finding out that there's a developmental issue within their internal gut that doesn't allow them to produce the hormones that help replicate important gene functions within their body, which creates developmental stunting.
Right.
And so a lot of people are blaming that on vaccinations.
Well, and the other thing that McCarthy brings up, she's like, I don't want to give this to my kid now, even after the fact, because people with autism can have adverse reactions to vaccines.
So I have one question, because when we were talking about the whole full disclosure on labels, is part of me wonders if there is has anybody ever, at what point during the process of you making some good product or whatever, what part is not part of this is where we start including everything on the label? Like, is there some practice? Is there something that you do in the process that doesn't fall under, hey, we don't have to put this on the label?
Like so many parts per million or whatever.
Well, either that or a proprietary thing.
And bingo, that's the best way to say it.
So patentable stuff. So a lot of this is based upon self-regulation.
So you hide it within your patent
You
process.
can. So, for example, gluten-free people. So what gluten-free people are doing is they're forcing an industry to highly process a lot of things to create a science project that would replicate dough or bread.
Right.
Okay? And so you're taking highly processed starches, you're using gums, you're using hydrocolloids, you're using a lot of things to mimic a loaf of bread. So, for example, gluten-free people make this thing called minute bread, where they take mozzarella cheese and some almond flour and maybe an egg and flavors, and they put it in a mug and stick it in a microwave.
Okay.
And they microwave it.
I've seen our mutual friend make this stuff.
It comes out in the microwave, and it's just like a biscuit.
It's like a keto. This is kind of like a keto
thing, right?
Yeah.
So the problem with that is that, one, you're using a microwave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is goes against a lot of healthy eating practices.
Right.
And then, two, you're taking a highly processed product like flour.
Yeah.
And you're taking extremely... The problem with fats with keto people is they choose the wrong fats. So if you're buying a bag of cheese that's already shredded, you're likely buying oil with whey powder and annatto.
That powder stuff that comes on the shredded cheese.
The sodium has to keep it together from sticking, and it also keeps it from molding.
So what you should do is just buy a block of cheese and shred it yourself. You lazy bum.
See, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah,
I do that.
And that's what you should do.
Okay.
And that's
I'll buy shredded cheese. So I'm glad
because if you notice, the bag cheese is so much saltier.
Yeah.
And if you notice, there's a powder on it, and it's because cheese. What it'll
I thought
happen,
that was cocaine.
Yeah, exactly. That's how they get around it.
That's why I was buying it. Okay.
He's wondering why you ran around the block.
Yeah,
10 times.
I was so happy.
It made me feel like Pablo Escobar.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that goes back to our discussion about why some people may not trust the vax.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, because honestly, there's a lot of statistics out there. It took them 10, 20, 30, 40 years to eradicate a lot of things.
Yep.
And we are forgetting some very important facts here. One, a lot of people are disputing the origin and intent of the virus.
Yep.
Okay. Two, it was right in the middle of an opportune time for a political.
It checked a lot of boxes.
It checked a lot of boxes that were not normally would be checked.
Yeah.
If it was a different president.
Yeah.
In a non-election year, it may have been handled completely different.
Well, and then you had, and again, I'll go back to this, and I don't care if it gets eye rolls or not, but the Great Reset. And
yeah.
That's been on political agendas in other nations for a long time. It's been at G8 meetings. You know, it's a real...
And it's a legitimate concern because look at the transfer of wealth right now.
Yeah. So, okay, so this kind of relates. So, did y'all hear about this protest thing that kicked off in Melbourne, Australia?
Oh, no. Yeah. What are they doing there?
Australia's got some problems, man.
Yeah, so
they're like corona paranoid down there.
So y'all got to forgive me. My brain like engages like 10 seconds after you say something. Yes, I did see that this morning.
Yeah, I mean, that was...
Yeah.
I mean,
is that where they shot the dogs? Didn't they shoot the dogs?
They're shooting
Australia?
dogs.
So they went around part of this deal.
Okay.
So it's shelters.
Yeah.
They went to shelters where they don't even want you to go to adopt a dog because they're afraid you're going to catch coronavirus by gathering in a group.
I didn't see any.
So they start killing these dogs.
That got me. I got in where is when they show this mass crowd with those bike racks that they usually set up to stop, and they're like busting through this thing. You know, you've got Australian police, mounted police, all kinds of stuff. It's like fucking mayhem.
Right.
So yeah, that's what started me down this rabbit hole, and then I saw that. So I was flipping through feed on, I think it was my MeWe feed this time around, and I saw where they're shooting these dogs, and I'm like, dude, that's uncool. So I started looking into why they were shooting these dogs, and it's a governmental agency going out there saying, yeah, Ken's right, that the people are showing up and petting these dogs, and the dogs are transmitting coronavirus.
They say they are.
Yeah. They say they are. Again,
so when you do parvo, when you vaccinate your dogs, you do parvo and coronavirus. It's not like coronavirus is new.
Yeah.
So the big argument with coronavirus is the lab manipulation of it.
The species jump.
Yeah, because if you remember, what's his name? Rand Paul literally destroyed Fauci about the community-born growth of this virus. And it's like, when you get a bunch of guys in the lab and they're trying to take a virus and see if we can replicate it and control it, it kind of tells you it's kind of nefarious in the first place. Scientists will say, well, that's how science is done. But what people don't realize is that there's a lot of money in this world, and there's a lot of people that will... Go ahead, because there's...
Well, to your point about... government, because we had this conversation downstairs, is when you start intermingling government and big pharma or just science in general, it causes me to kind of question, hey, the science that you came up with, was it science or was it a fucking agenda?
Right. Well, to me, those lines get blurred. So it's funny you're saying that, because that made me think of something else that I wanted to talk about, and it kind of goes along with what you're just saying right there. Is I saw an article that said the reason the Taliban were so successful was because of climate change. And it really wasn't the Taliban's fault.
I saw this.
It was climate change.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty fascinating. But it's the same concept as what you're just relaying right there.
To preface, I'm the guy that they're talking about who eye rolls during...
I think Ken will eye roll us. I'm sure I'll eye roll.
But I typically will do it most of the time.
It's great.
But even now, it makes you kind of wonder when you see weird shit like, hey, government and science sharing the same bed, kind of.
So when you start unpacking some of the conspiracy theories, here's the interesting thing about a conspiracy theory. It typically starts with 1/10 of a shred of truth.
Yes.
And then it starts getting linked on by the guy that knew the sister whose friend's brother cousin was involved in it. So let's go back to the climate change for a minute. Remember when China was caught seeding the clouds?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Okay. And they were talking about how it affected these huge shifts in the jet stream.
Right.
And so they did some testing, and they were finding stuff that, you can literally spread a virus from China all the way across through Africa, down through the Midwest, off the East Coast, and back to the...
Through the jet stream.
Through the jet stream.
I want to say that...
They did high-altitude balloon testing.
So Michael Crichton, a long time ago, I vaguely remember reading some book from his about how in the book, some world power was toying around with this like weaponizing
climate
weather.
Yeah. And so literally that was one of the discussions. So that morphed into contrails.
Yep.
Yeah. So now all of a sudden it's a corporate conspiracy. See, this is how you unpack the truth. This is how you hide the truth.
Right.
So what you do is you actually get caught doing something. and then you create a circumstance of conspiracy.
Asinine. You make something asinine.
Completely asinine, and guess what? People jump on that thing.
It's funny. So when I first started, I don't know, 20 years ago at my current position, we had a guy that was a conspiracy theorist, and I didn't know this guy from Adam. You know, I'm standing.
I know who this is.
I know you did. I wasn't going to mention any names. So I'm standing in the parking lot, and this dude's like a pragmatic chain smoker. I mean, he's constantly got a cigarette, and he talks in a raspy voice like this.
He's a character.
He is. He's a character above of a character. So I'm walking across the parking lot. This dude's got a cigarette in his mouth. He's like, Dot, come here. I'm like,
literally, this is no joke. This is how he is.
So I walk over there. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, look up there. What do you see? I'm like, I see some clouds. What am I looking for? And he's like, you see those trails behind the plane? That's chemtrails. And I'm like, what the F are you talking about? And that was the first I had ever heard of that.
Yeah.
And I kind of put that along the same lines as flat Earth.
And well, that's how you do it, though. And so
he believed. I mean, he was wholeheartedly. To this day, I can still go have conversations, and it's chemtrails.
Well, it's funny because I watched a debate between a flat earther.
Yeah.
And you can watch any of them; they're almost watching the same one, and it's like, wow, dude, really? I mean, how do you? They get so the problematic part of it is they get so passionate that they become angry and aggressive.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind me asking, where did you see this flat earther deal?
So I saw it. So I live on YouTube.
Okay,
and so I'm skimming on YouTube, and I was watching a Rogan thing one time.
I want to say if the flat earther dude is the same dude that lives on Facebook too.
White guy with a beard?
No.
Okay, I was watching a young white guy that was so passionate.
And this guy that I'm talking
about,
he
literally couldn't believe that you didn't believe him.
He's very infamous for being a hard and fast flat earther.
And it's unfortunate because all you got to do is get him in an airplane, take him to 44,000 feet.
Show him the curvature.
Show him the curvature of the Earth.
Trick windows.
You literally,
trick windows.
And that might be how they.
The Matrix is in my brain.
Yeah. So so the climate was really funny. I posted a meme the other day, and y'all saw it. It was two cavemen standing on top of ice-covered mountains, and they were talking about someday, they were talking about their fires, about being responsible with their fires, and what they forget is that the Earth was covered in ice for many, 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 many millennia.
Yeah,
and the science is really quick to point out to you that all this thing was covered with water, and it slowly is dwindling down. Well, that tells you that there's a cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no way you can prove that you've accelerated it.
Yeah.
And there's no way you can prove that you decelerated it. So it gives you the perfect ground to start controversy. And what makes controversy work best is conspiracy.
Yeah.
And I think that it's unfortunate because, and this is just going to be my opinion on this.
Right.
Responsibility in manufacturing and producing should have been the order from the beginning, but it never was. It was always about profit.
Yeah.
So profit creates cutting corners, harming people, harming the environment. And then when they finally they extract all the resource, they go bankrupt and they just leave waste.
Yeah.
Okay. We see this it's just a business model. So if you really want to get mad at somebody, get mad at the universities that are teaching these business models, get mad at the banks that are promoting these financial practices, and get mad at the legislature for allowing the banks to do the bankruptcy laws the way we do them.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, responsible manufacturing should always be at the forefront. It's not a Republican, it's not a Democrat, it's not a lesbian, it's not a straight or gay issue. It's a people issue in the sense of manage your plastic. Like plastic, they want you to get rid of a plastic bottle and they want you to use a straw made out of bamboo, right?
Right.
But it's the guy that you pay to haul off the trash that takes and dumps the shit in the ocean. Or it's the guy that throws it on the side of the road and doesn't get a ticket for it. Do that shit in Singapore.
Yeah.
And see
what happens.
See what happens to you in another country when you pollute. So to me, what ends up happening is all these problems are a sum of our total laziness and desire to blame somebody else for that reason.
Right.
And that's how I look at it, because when you look at building things, you have to have an end game.
And And okay. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, dude, we're just all full of interruptions today. That one's my fault.
That's okay though. That's life. So while
issues.
you were hashing that out, we were talking about expanding on the business discussion, and Sam brought up an excellent example. There was a movie with Rodney Dangerfield called Back to School.
Saw it.
And he's sitting in class in a business class, and it's taught by Dr. Barbet.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so Barbet is laying out his litany on corporate structure, how to start a factory,
a successful.
That's what he said, a successful business. So Rodney Dangerfield's character starts interjecting questions.
Yep.
And the professor is getting frustrated. He goes, "Dude, you got it all wrong. You got to pay off these guys, and you got to get this done, and you got to get that done." And that's an excellent point as to why we have the problems we have.
And that's typically my attitude when it comes to a lot of people who claim to be experts. Is you show me how it looks like on paper.
Yeah, you textbooked
it. You yourself don't do this. Therefore, you're not the fucking expert.
Right.
So, and that's that's a harsh way for me to do it. But sometimes it gets me out of a discussion.
Although the greatest part of that movie was Sam Kinnison's character as the history teacher.
Yeah.
Oh!
Because
talking about going to Vietnam.
Yeah. Sit back here, and protest.
Sorry, that just when you said that and the triple, what was it? The triple Lutz, isn't that what he did?
Yeah, the triple Lindy.
Lindy, that's it.
The triple from Steel Pier in New Jersey. It's funny because when you really boil it down, I mean, so art always imitates life. Writers get their ideas from somewhere.
Right.
They may embellish it, but when you really get down to it, like I'm going through some corporate due diligence right now, and we're asking investors for a large amount of money. And so investors are going to do what they do. They ask you a lot of questions about, can you retain the talent? Is the patent this? And is the process that? And so they start asking you questions you should be asking yourself. It's like, okay, well, if you're asking me to pay this engineer, how many plants has he built? How successful was he at it? And then was this engineer this? And you get all these really legitimate questions that are really like risk adverse. We tend to not do that. We've been taught to lead with passion instead of common sense. Because
it goes back to the lack of critical thinking that takes place.
Sure.
Nobody wants to ask questions, and that clearly leads to
because we sit in this room.
Questions.
Exactly, we sit in this little studio and we talk about a lot of things, and we share a lot of commonalities, but we approach it so different.
Yeah,
from so many different angles, but we tend to find a way to kind of get things to go, in a direction.
So we're willing to come run your company if you want to hire us. We will take the job at. I don't know. What do y'all think? $1 million a piece?
At least.
Okay.
Yeah. To start, and if you don't like us after a year, just fire us.
Yeah, you can let us go.
Yeah. We'll be the Larry Moe and Curly of the corporate world.
A year minimum.
Because, I don't know. It's just that people need to start unpacking the drama because that's what's wrong right now. We were talking about ribbons the other day. A lot of this Me Too movement, this all started about, I don't know, whenever people started wearing pink ribbons and yellow ribbons, and they were wearing these ribbons to show that they cared about a cause.
Yeah. Solidarity.
Yeah, solidarity.
It makes me think of that episode of Seinfeld
Yeah.
where Kramer's on the run. He's like, I don't want to wear the ribbon, and they end up beating the crap out of him because he won't wear the ribbon.
At the very end, yeah. Well, but it's so true, though, because it's an example of just how extreme people are. They don't know why they're beating you up other than you're not wearing the ribbon.
Right.
They didn't ask you why you're not wearing the ribbon.
Right.
Or what you have against it. I mean, maybe it fell off. I mean, there's so many things that people get crazy about. And it's funny because we lead with passion as opposed to common sense. I think that, like with Afghanistan, I mean, the thing that is really eating me alive is the fact that we left resources on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm watching guys that are putting on uniforms.
Yeah.
That were meant for another military that mimics our military, that now have the ability to mask themselves as another entity. So does this now make the military completely change their uniforms?
So here's what I can speak to. So, and y'all wouldn't necessarily know this, but so when I was there, like all of our Terps,
Uh-huh.
so our Terps wore our ACUs.
Mm-hmm.
And in case you don't know what an ACU is, ACU was a uniform that they adopted in like 2004.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
browns, tans,
yeah.
grays.
So when we were over there, we wear a different pattern. When you're in either, I don't remember, I don't think it's OIF, but OEF, you wear a completely different fucking pattern.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were there, there was a deal about, hey, your Terps, anybody who's not a service member will not be wearing anything. They won't be wearing I forget what we called the uniforms, but you won't be wearing this pattern.
Yeah,
because
that's
you're not going to be. And so we had whenever we had cleaning services that did all our laundry and shit.
Yeah.
So they kept a tight rein on our counts. You always had to make sure that
Your stuff didn't get out.
Your
Yeah.
counts were right with your uniforms. You knew where everything was. So
Good.
there, so I haven't heard anything about the uniform thing, but the thing is because we left, because they're coalition bases.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably several countries left shit behind.
Oh, I would think the Canadians were big,
and their uniforms are completely freaking
right?
different.
Because they, the thing that really, and I always was hoping this was Photoshop.
They got a big C on the back of Canada.
They have fabulous mustaches and beards, but I love those dudes. Those dudes are fucking awesome.
Canadians are cool. The thing that offended me, and I was hoping it was Photoshop, but I don't think it is when they recreated the Okinawa thing, raising the flag.
I just saw that this morning.
And to me, if there's any staying in the underwear of a president, that would be the one. Because I mean, honestly, that's the biggest FU on the planet.
This dude's going to be wearing this for a long time. There's no doubt about it. No matter what side, if you're real with yourself, no matter what side of the aisle you fall on, you got to view this as like one of the largest stains ever.
Well, it is because you've got.
If this happened to our guy, I'd be like, it's effed up.
The one thing I don't like, though, and I hate to say this because I know in the verse people will poo-poo on that, but okay, comparing it. I saw a meme the other day where a Vietnam vet put his hands on the shoulder of an Afghan vet. It says, "Don't worry, at least they didn't spit on you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, to me, I mean, memes are memes, but that's not cool. It's really not. I mean, I don't know. I just see everybody's expressing these different things, and I'm like, I didn't like that. I saw that as, okay. I mean.
Well, nobody's blaming. Here's the thing: nobody's blaming the military at this. I don't think, because they did what they were supposed to do.
Well, they did what they were told.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
and they did it. You go do X, Y, Z. These guys did X, Y, Z. It's that simple. It's definitely a failure of leadership. There is no other way to look at it at this point.
When you get conflicting stories coming back saying, no, we told him months ago what this was, or because the president had a previous plan they thought was better, he didn't like it, so he changed it to his plan type thing. That's just like this this community caretaking thing that got slipped under the radar.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that the Supreme Court voted 9-0 to not uphold warrantless entry in the name of community caretaking.
Yeah.
And you go, wait a minute. And you start unpacking it, and you come find out that a tip line or a stop can get your Fourth Amendment rights completely circumvented.
Right, or a welfare check. I've heard them going in on welfare checks and saying, oh, I see stuff over here that's not supposed to be there, and that was all done.
Which is not related to the welfare check. Right. It's just a secondary gain for them.
So this community welfare thing that you're talking about, when did that get?
73 is when they say it started.
Like 1973?
Yeah, 1973 was the first case.
Okay. So if you haven't heard from somebody in a while and you want to go check on
that type thing. And then it gets enhanced under the DHS under Napolitano, and it gave a year. I just didn't see that. And so I didn't see the specific date. You can go to the documents. And so when you go and you go online and you pull the records, you can see the timeline of this, because there's been multiple lawsuits on the seizure of property. Because the RICO Act would be the most famous one to come to your mind, but they would have to prove that you were involved in an illegal enterprise.
So the seizure of any of these items what happens to that? Do they get returned?
Well, so the first one, the Dombrowski case, He had to go to court and go through an extensive legal battle to get a family heirloom weapon back.
So
maybe
okay, so endure like a financial hardship to repurchase something he already fucking owned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was the thing that was kind of, and then it brought up an argument that's going on with Alan West in Dallas right now with his wife. Have y'all seen that?
No. I saw a blur. I didn't read the story.
So apparently, I don't know what day of the week it was. We'll just say it was last week. His wife went to P.F. Chang's with some friends, and she ate her dinner, got in her car, and she made a right turn without using her turn signal. So she gets pulled over by a Dallas police unit. And this police unit is a DWI task force that just drives around and looks for you to make a mistake. And then they want to take you and they want to pounce on it. And that's literally how it would be described. So she gets pulled over, and it's a black female officer coming up to a black lady in a car. So there's no racial issue here, right?
That sounds to me like almost like a strategy almost.
Well,
okay.
To your point, exactly right. So what ends up happening is they ask her, ma'am, you made an erratic turn back there without a turn signal. We'd like to ask you. Yeah, have you been drinking or taking any narcotics? She goes, no, I was at P.F. Chang's with my friends.
An erratic turn.
That's what the driver said. Well, see, catastrophic language, when you write them on a ticket, it paints a picture in the jury and judge's eye, or DA's eye, right? Yeah. So what ends up happening is they get her out of the car, conduct a field sobriety test, they arrest her, take her in, and they do a blood draw. She's booked, charged, and then released. Now, the problem is that when they asked for the results of the blood draw, they said, well, they're inconclusive, and so we're sending them out. And it may take 3 to 6 weeks to get this back.
Got to plant the alcohol in the blood.
So herein lies the problem with this process. So now she is literally guilty.
Yeah.
She's deemed guilty by these officers. And so this is Alan West's wife, and he's running for the governor of the state of Texas.
Right.
So now it starts.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's been for a while.
Yeah, they wouldn't even let his daughter go pick the car up. They towed the car.
Yeah.
So it's like they're shitting on this dude, I think.
Yeah.
And because you start seeing police used by a local government as a payback tool. This is nothing new to Texas.
Yeah.
This has been going on in Texas for a long time. And so what ends up happening now is that her sample is sitting somewhere, aging.
Yeah.
While the onus of her being a drunk driver. So what he did is they pulled the receipts from their dinner at P.F. Chang's.
Right. Did she have anything to drink?
No, he posted them on Facebook and on social Instagram, all of it.
Okay, so he did full disclosure.
He's like, hey, we're going to show you what really. So it said she had ribs, some soup, and then she had lemonade and water. And the funny thing is they charged her 29 cents for a no alcohol consumption tax.
Huh.
Which means there was no alcohol. 29 cents of that tab.
Because you didn't
drink alcohol, they charged her 29 cents. So she literally.
Wow, so you're punished for not breaking the law.
Exactly. So this is on the receipt. You can pull it up and look at it. It's insane. And so
P.F. Chang's made me do it. That'd be my defense if I went in.
And so it's all literally right there right before your eyes.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see this thing as becoming a very ugly thing because these are like this task force. Anytime I hear a task force, it kind of makes me go, they got a quota.
Yeah, exactly.
They got to justify the funding, so they're going to make a number. That's just corporate mentality. Instead of doing what's right, they're going to do what's profitable.
Right.
Okay? Because you're told if you don't spend that budget, then we're just going to reduce it the next year.
I know
it's
that
hard to
for a
ask for
fact.
more if you don't spend it, which is a flaw in any system.
Yep.
And so anyway, so they're fighting this out right now, and it's funny because he basically said, look, if the police chief doesn't come to my house and apologize to my wife, and their young son was in the car with them.
Oh, wow.
One of their sons were in the car with them, or grandson, I can't remember.
That's kind of traumatic for a kid.
Pretty much. And so he goes, you're going to come to my house and apologize to my family. You're going to clear her record, and if you don't, this will be the ugliest thing you've ever entered in your life. And he wants that cop fired.
Yeah, Wes is a pretty serious dude.
Dude, I gotta tell you, I like him. I've always liked him.
I listened to him on the talk show circuit for a few years.
Well, he was a really good. He was in the military.
Yep.
He's a very
colonel.
Yeah, he's a very structured guy. The problem with him in the world is he stands up for things that a lot of other people that don't.
He likes to die on hills that are necessarily nobody else would.
Well,
which I can appreciate because it comes out to principles.
Exactly. He's about doing what's right, doing the best you can, treat people like you want to be treated, but follow the law while you do it. And he wants to protect the right of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and defending yourself.
Yeah.
Because he's a big 2A guy.
He is.
He's a big 2A guy. I think he ran for office in Florida years ago.
That sounds right.
And then he moved to Texas. Now he wants to run against the governor in the state of Texas. So, you start seeing these interpretations of a cause that creates these entities that go out and they literally pounce on the wrong people. Because we're going to talk a little bit about Portland. Let's talk, because here we live in this world where a lady's leaving dinner with her friends and she gets basically accosted.
Yeah.
And arrested temporarily and given a charge based on evidence that hasn't been verified.
Right.
Only through observation. I mean, she's a 61-year-old lady. It's not like she's going to be able to do a tap dance and walk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
it makes me wonder what field sobriety test did they use?
Absolutely.
A lot of that's going to play into.
Yeah.
And again, they're probably looking at it from a political spectrum.
And she blew and it was inconclusive.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're probably looking at it from the political eye of, we did the damage. This be behind the scenes. We did the damage to her. The damage is done.
Yeah.
We got what we wanted out. Whether she's guilty or gets
let the
off
news
or
cycle run with it.
Exactly.
See, and so it works in tandem, right?
Right.
Because literally, they said that the one test came out as inconclusive. So the next question was, were you taking any drugs?
Yeah.
So because it wasn't alcohol, well, now it must be drugs. So this is what you go through as a citizen on the side of the road. And it's kind of a sad state of affairs.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you, because you've got a department that has definitely an agenda. You have an assembly of a task force that is going to put a certain type of person in that job.
Right.
You give them a specific task, and then tell them on top of that, you burden them with the fact that if you don't make this work, we don't get funded. You don't have a job.
Yeah,
next year.
you're out.
So
yeah.
I'm kind of. I mean, I'm that guy where I don't. You have to do what's right, and you have to do what's responsible, and you have to be fiscally accountable. But you shouldn't cut corners or fake these things,
right?
Because you're charged with public safety.
It's just the nature of the beast that they've created, though. This is a creation on purpose, in my opinion. It goes back to what we talked about, courts and lawyers, and it's to generate money. That's all it is. It's a money generator.
Sure.
It's not about crime and punishment anymore. It's about money generation.
Right. But let's talk about Portland for a minute.
That's true. So we did
we talked about this earlier, and I don't want to pass this up.
We did. So a close friend of mine.
Well, she's a friend of the podcast.
She is. She knows. Yeah. She knows all of us. But she has a new job. She ended up in Portland for a business trip. So we were all very interested to get the report of what she saw. Actual boots on the ground. What did you see when you were there? So she came back Sunday, and we sat down and talked for a little bit. And according to her, I found it very interesting. Half the businesses downtown are still boarded up. You have to have a COVID passport pretty much to go anywhere indoors in the city, anywhere.
Okay.
And she said the majority of the people, their attitude around there is it's just a crappy. She's like, everybody on the street has just this crappy attitude. It's just a bad attitude, a bad scene.
Just bad morale.
Like they don't want to be there. Bad morale. They don't want to be there. Everybody kind of. You're talking about somebody that comes from Texas, so they're used to Texas hospitality. You get out. Some things I notice about, like when I get out and walk, like through my subdivision, or if I'm walking in, even in a crowd of people. Generally, if you make eye contact, you acknowledge each other. You nod or wave.
I've noticed that, like when I go to the park.
Right.
Yeah.
She's like, there's none of that there. There's nobody. It's almost like nobody wants to acknowledge that you're there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The whole social experiment of her going there was just fascinating. Lots of homeless encampments. She said the homeless encampment was far worse than what she experienced when she was in Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Right.
Huge amounts of homeless. Encountered a pregnant woman that was homeless, asking for food, asking for money.
So to tangent off of that, so I went to a friend of mine. He's just recently retired as a sergeant major.
Yeah.
And so I went to Austin for the retirement party. It was a retirement party / memorial because his father was also held that position in the state level.
Okay.
So anyway, when I was there, when I was entering and leaving Austin, now the parts of Austin I'm traveling to get to the base that I was going to is very different than going into downtown Austin. Because I remember going in downtown Austin when Chief and I went last.
Yeah.
As there was these fucking camps all up and down like Town Lake where I used to run. So
my son Mike told me about that. He was recently there.
Yeah,
He said
so
it's awful.
It's horrible. And so when I was entering town, I saw these these odd places because I was in a hurry to get there. I wanted to make sure I was on time. And the first thing I remember entering town was like, that's a fucking stupid place to put a tent. And then not realizing, I was like, fuck, this encampment has not only left downtown.
Yeah.
It's going into like the entering parts of downtown or into town where you see it. Like, over off of like 281 and 35 and all these areas. And so I'm driving through this part of town and I'm seeing just these like, hey, we're just going to throw up a tent here.
Right.
We're just going to live.
We're going to camp.
Yeah.
Permanently.
Mainly because they don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the city infrastructure to either A, run the people off, or they don't have the laws in place to say that what you're doing is
or the
wrong.
will or desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, I will say, to your point,
Yeah.
is right now the will and the desire of city council is to not do that.
Yeah, it makes a great public statement. Because going back to Portland, so they have a real famous Pearl River district.
Yeah.
So it's not a very large downtown. First of all, I used to go there about once a month for about a year because I had a lot of business up in that part of town.
She said she could walk to most of her destinations, but wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because it was that bad. But yeah, you're right. It's small. To get to your point, yes, she said
it's not a very big downtown. Right. And so back in the 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way through 15, I was in Portland a lot. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of sort of sketchy a little bit in certain parts of the town anyway. Because when you go downtown, there's two bridges that cross the river to get into town. I used to go to this place called Mike's Beef and Sausage across the river because it was full of Cadillacs and Lincolns and wise guys.
Yeah, yeah.
But it had the best food in town. You can get Chicago beef sandwich, a New York style, and it was
good stuff.
Yeah, and it's all Cadillacs and these big Goombas in there, right? But when you cross the bridge, you start getting into the really kitschy places, and there was this restaurant called the Red Square. And it was yeah. So I went in there, and it's basically like eating in East Germany.
Yeah,
the black spandex and the clothes, and the food was like, you got like bison and you got like bouillabaisse or borscht or whatever.
Right.
You can get European style foods, and then right across the street was like a shit ton of food trucks. Literally, it was one of the biggest collection of food trucks and trailers you ever saw.
Yeah,
so you can walk fairly safely back in those days, and then you can go all the way down to Pearl River. You take that main street all the way down. It goes all the way to the Pearl River district, where it has the world's largest bookstore. And then when you get in there, it really starts getting gentrified.
Those are all burned now, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably. And so, to me, when you look at the scope of what our friend is sharing with us, and I'm visualizing my time spent there, that's not a big footprint.
Yeah, you're talking about relatively
small compared to most cities, because Portland, it expands out into a lot of suburban type things, and so you have this hovel now, or favela for better lack of term, of these people that are living like they're in Colombia or something. And this is that whole freedom fighter bullshit mentality that they have. And so when you go to Portland, I mean, like I said, it was had good beer there. I used to go to the
Oregon and Washington area.
That's some good beers.
They've got some badass fucking beers.
Rogue. I used to go to Rogue all the time.
Yeah.
A good thing at dysentery, just to run through there, would probably take care of a lot of that.
Well, when the previous administration sent van loads of marshals through there and started snatching leadership, that was a good start.
He did that right at the end.
Yeah.
And it's like, why weren't you doing this from the beginning?
Well, they pulled the plug too.
They did.
So because he knew it was going to end.
He was fighting a lot of political structure.
Because the leadership in Portland doesn't have the desire to stop that.
Yeah. And that was one of the interesting points that she brought up is the people really don't have the desire to stop that. I found that fascinating that you can live amongst that.
Have you been to Portland?
Never. I've never been to Portland.
It's depressing.
Was Portland's mayor the one that thought he could mingle amongst the
and
crowd
they almost beat him up. Yeah, they had to run him off. They had to escort him.
Ted Wheeler.
Yeah.
Of the video, I remember he just got booed out of the place.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, they had to escort him away.
I don't remember that.
There was a dude that actually showed up and threatened him with death.
Death, yeah.
That dude threatened to kill him.
Right.
That was a video. That there was a dude that threatened him to his face, and that dude threatened him with severe physical bodily harm.
And that's when he said, "We got to get you out of here."
The anonymous guy.
I did see that video.
Yeah.
I did see that video.
The anonymous guy got on and made a video. The Scottish boys when they talk like this. He got on there and threatened him. They basically said, "We will take you out."
And those types.
That cracks me up.
Is anybody that starts making threats like that? I don't care what the fucking cause is.
Yeah.
Anybody who can get that fucking rabid about something, to me, needs to be stuck in a fucking institution.
I don't disagree with you because I would much more respect somebody that just started snatching up people.
I just want the sound effects. That's all I want.
Yeah,
I want the
no
sound
doubt.
effects that they use to make the voice.
Well, and you kind of wonder if that anonymous thing is coming from the U.S. or not.
The guy spoke pretty plain English, so
Did he?
I would say from the accent I would say he was a Portlander.
Yeah, because I don't know. I just look at Portland, I look at Seattle, and once you get out of the metropolitan areas, they're pretty.
It gets pretty conservative.
Pretty
real quick.
conservative. Yeah.
It's a different mindset.
It's a whole different mindset. So Texas has its own problems with Austin, Dallas, San Antonio.
Yeah,
because it's very much that way now.
Yeah.
In our three cities, Houston included.
Yep.
It's not as bad in Houston yet.
Yet
because pardon me, you have this this clutch of people that are really afraid to go beyond the step that other cities have gone.
Yeah, I think that most people here just want to chill.
You hope so.
I hope so.
Yeah, you hope so. And it's incremental. It's an incremental thing as opposed to a totalitarian thing. Because when you start looking at, like, what is it, Julian Castro?
Yeah.
And those guys in San Antonio, yeah.
Fucking idiots.
And I'm a big supporter of the Alamo and the Daughters of the Republic of Texas. I've spent many years doing stuff with those organizations. And now you're starting to see the state of Texas step in. And with George P. Bush, or whatever Bush it is, which I would never vote for Bush ever again in my life. But anyway, he's stepping in and they're trying to redefine the Alamo. Because what they want to do is they want to rewrite the history of it from the state of come and take it and the first really the independent state of Texas. And so they figure they got to attack the idols.
You know what it's going to turn into? You know what this is going to turn into?
It's
going to turn into Santa Ana attacked because of climate change.
You know that
they may have because they incurred floods.
Yeah.
Hail and all kinds of bad weather when they were on that march.
And getting shot.
My buddy Jeff was just there recently, and I saw a recent article in there where they've already started breaking ground.
They have
on because the
new center in the back, the interactive learning center.
Ripley's, they've already torn it down, and so I used to go down there for change of command ceremonies all the time, and I don't even remember half. I mean, I was there for the ceremony, then I couldn't wait to get the fuck out of there.
So I kind of like the idea that they're reestablishing the four corners of the fort. I got to be honest with you, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And they're going to make it to where you can stand on a parapet and look through and you'll get a visual. It'll literally be a image of what it looked like back in the day. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I do like that, but what I don't like is that with that comes the unpacking of the history, like they did with Pearl Harbor. They basically... It was, the Japanese attack. Now it's like, they non-aggressively took a stroll with a bunch of planes and happened to drop bombs.
They were looking for sandwiches.
And that's really the sad part about revisionists. There's nothing wrong about a history.
Yeah.
As long as you learn from it and don't repeat it. I mean, that's really the thing. I mean, you should hear the hard truth about what a dictator is.
Yeah.
You should hear the hard truth about what a passive society is. You should hear the truth about what oppression is. But see, nobody wants to do that. They all want to massage it into he was a misguided evil person. because he believed in God
Yeah.
and country.
Well, there's
and
an
you're
agenda.
right.
They've got to attach something to it
Yeah.
to make it.
And I will
why.
say, depending on today's historians, particularly today's historians who have like a political bent towards like, hey, I want to tell things, but you can't question their summation of history, because then you're like attacking them because of their bend on something.
The 1916 project is the 1619 project is proof of that.
I don't know what that is.
The Columbus thing, isn't it? No.
That's the one where they came out and tried to rewrite 1776 history.
Yes, that's right.
So what they're trying to say is in the 16, I believe it's the 1619 project. Am I pronouncing that right?
I don't know.
Let's do a little Google.
Because Columbus
here.
was 1692.
So
1492. I mean,
yeah, that's not.
Yeah,
it.
1692 was
the 1619 project.
So
is
that was the
rewriting of American history, that we were founded on a racist nation.
And that was defunded by Trump.
They tried to, and it seems to be making a comeback.
Well, because now you got Biden in there.
Yeah,
because they also have the Lincoln Project.
It is.
Now, the sad thing about that is that your tax dollars are being squandered away by a bunch of people that are handing money to other people to do studies with no net gain out of it.
So just on that comment alone, without leaning left or right, when somebody takes publicly funded money and goes and spends it on this, this retelling of fucking history, I have a big problem with that.
Yeah, and we all should.
That, I personally didn't contribute fucking tax dollars to sit around and suddenly be decided that this is what we're going to use your $14.50 for, whatever towards this thing. Fuck you. Now, but I'm also not, if there's an error, not an error, but if something gets discovered along the way that we didn't know about in history, yes, absolutely fucking include it. But a political agenda being the one that drives it, oh no.
That's essentially what that 1619 project is. It was to combat the theory of 1776 was the start of America. 1619 was a ship off of Point Comfort, which is in Virginia, was a slave ship sailing across the horizon with 20 African slaves, and the founding of America really started there. And it started its foundations as a racist nation.
What about all the other slaves?
They didn't matter. They didn't matter because this narrative was 1619.
So I'm going to say, long before some ship in 1619 that was bound for fucking the New World.
Yeah.
There were other ships out there that had fucking slaves on them.
Yeah, white, black,
had
brown.
Nothing to do with the New World,
Portuguese,
or any kind of any of the trading companies that were set up in the Europe. What about those fucking boats?
Right.
The one thing I really do enjoy about today's climate is that you have black scholars that actually come out and dispel a lot of the stuff that's been pushed by agendas.
Yeah.
And that to me is a fair argument to listen to, because it eliminates the fact that it's a white person's perspective, and okay, I'll give you that. Let me hear what you got to say.
Yeah.
And when they start telling you about how their world was over there, to where they were slaves sold as an asset.
Yeah.
To another slaveholding group. It wasn't like a bunch of white guys got together and said, hey, send me all these black guys to come work for me. It was an enterprise that was going on in the Indies.
Yeah.
It was going on in all parts of the world. It wasn't just the U.S. No, go ahead, because that's...
So I don't know if either one of y'all have ever watched this show. So have you ever seen the show Spartacus?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The series.
The series,
Okay.
I watched the whole thing. It's good.
So I recently started Spartacus again just because it's kind of a guilty pleasure. And
lots of titties and ass.
Yeah, a lot of nudity,
But when you look at what was going on there, I mean, slavery is like prolific throughout that series.
The whole known world.
And it's not only Romans, it's, you look at all the different tribal regions the Thracians, all of this, none of them had anything to do with England or Spain or any of these other countries.
Well, pretty much every race has been enslaved at some point or another.
But the only slavery, and this is probably the only time where I'm probably feeling a little bit more animated is the fact that when somebody brings up something about slavery and only wants to associate it as it relates to the creation of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And exactly. That's exactly.
You want to tell me that fucking slavery never fucking existed prior to the setting up of the United States? Yeah. Get the fuck out of here.
Well, it doesn't make me any money. You can't make money. You can't make money politically.
No.
Any other way. So that's what it boils down to.
So when you look at it, when you look at the other countries, you have a political system that's probably feudal.
Yeah.
In many ways. To me, that'd be the best way to summarize it, is feudal. What they hate so much is the fact that when the settlers came to the United States and established a constitution that was run by the people, of the people, and for the people, that completely goes against elitist mentality.
Right.
So elitist mentalities love feudalism. They love that, to languish in the luxury of the control of vast properties and land and people. So of course they go, you know what? You're too stupid, colonists, to have your own rights and freedoms. And I'm going to prove it to you by providing drugs, sex, and corruption. Okay? And I'm going to literally feed those industries. And I'm going to show you images of all these things.
Right.
I'm going to make you covet all these things. And then I'm going to watch you burn to the ground as I chisel away at the foundation of your freedom that your forefathers fought so hard for. And that's what I see in the world today.
That's been the plan all along.
And talking about the Great Reset, you kind of see that.
Yeah.
And you'd almost have to be... I challenged somebody the other day, and I want you guys to chime this because... sitting on the sidelines and sharpshooting it, is one thing. But when people get active in it, don't poo-poo on them because you would have done it different. Because if you're not doing it different, you have nothing to say.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything about this. And when you live in a country that you're just slowly watching disintegrate, and it's only being controlled by an extremely, when it comes to the comparison of the
small
populace,
minority.
Very small amount
not
of
minority of race, just a minority of people.
Small
group.
Exactly. It's incumbent upon you to not just sit there and report on it, but you should be active in it. And I'm not saying pitchforks and torches yet.
But fight it. Fight the information
exactly.
battle.
Corporations only thrive on money.
Yeah.
We talked about a company that, what was it called? The nudity thing.
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. Yeah, because so you get a company like OnlyFans that becomes woke in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not versed in that, so I mean, what's going on with
So the vast majority of their income is derived from chicks sitting at home stripping.
Well, okay. So they're not. I will say that they're not only relegated to.
They're not, but that's the vast majority of their business.
Yes.
So it's basically people selling images of some sort of themselves.
Yeah.
To generate revenue.
Somebody who's willing to pay them like a monthly.
And there's something wrong with that.
Well, according to OnlyFans, they're tired of deriving large amounts of income from that. My guess is they're
evil money.
They got a woke message from somebody that said, "I can't believe you're exploiting these women at home." You know how that goes,
right?
The clucking starts.
Well, when you look at the whole premise of OnlyFans, does it necessarily constitute that my only business should be involved in like nudity and porn? No. But the thing is that's what it evolved into.
So there was people
who took it there though.
The
users took it there.
Because it's like the fastest growing business with the quickest adoption. Oh my God! You tell me I get to go to a site and see you naked? All the time.
You mean I get to do work and all I need is a Coke bottle and a camera? And my couch?
That just shows you the sad state of the affairs, right? Because I mean, honestly, it's like the whole drug battle.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing with drugs. I mean, there's the school of thought is like, you know what? Just give them all the drugs they want. They'll die off.
Yeah.
Or you can just slow it down and manage it and make extreme amounts of money off of it. And that's just like with disease management and anything else. Again, it's that Harvard business view of profiteering. I took a lot of Harvard business classes.
Yeah.
And I drank the Kool-Aid for a long time until I started realizing who that was serving. And at some point in time, I mean, capitalism is a good thing. diversity of your portfolio is an even better thing.
Yeah.
Am I morally condoning that business? No. I won't use it or subscribe to it.
But I think it's people's rights to do it.
But it's people's right to choose that.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you're going to defend the First Amendment right of a group that you like, you have to like them all.
Right? Yeah.
You have to like them all, and then let the court of public opinion determine who survives.
My sex doll, my choice.
That's all you can do.